Imagine a planet where snakes were 13 meters long, dragonflies were the size of eagles, and sharks swallowed entire cars. Sounds impossible. It was real. For centuries, scientists have asked themselves, why were prehistoric animals so gigantic? The answer involves climate, oxygen, evolution, and a perfect combination of factors that may never happen again. In the next few minutes, you'll discover how these titans existed and why we live in a world of dwarfs today. But first, are you ready to see the planet through different eyes? To understand gigantism, we first need to travel back in time and set foot on a planet we barely recognize. Hundreds of millions of years ago, Earth had no frozen polar ice caps or arid deserts like the ones we know today. It was a hothouse world, warm and humid, where average global temperatures were drastically higher than any summer we've ever experienced. In this setting, primeval forests spread across entire continents, forming endless green carpets that provided food and shelter for an explosive biodiversity. There were no grasses or colorful flowers yet. The land belonged to giant ferns, tree-sized horsetails, and lycopods that reached dozens of meters in height, forming dense, shadowy canopies. The atmosphere also played a crucial role in this equation. Although the composition of gases varied across different eras, CO2 levels were often elevated, fueling a natural greenhouse effect that kept the planet warm and the oceans hot. This constant heat eliminated harsh seasons in many regions, allowing animals to grow year-round without having to burn extra energy just to survive intense cold. Ecosystems were extremely rich and interconnected, with complex food chains that sustain enormous biomasses on land and in the sea. Abundant resources meant there was enough food not just to survive, but to grow beyond the limits we see today, creating evolutionary pressure that favored increased body size as a competitive advantage. But here's the catch: a warm climate and lush forests are only the opening act of this epic story. That alone doesn't explain why some animals became so disproportionately large while others stayed small. To find the true engine behind this growth, we need to look at something invisible but vital that filled every breath these ancient creatures took. During the Carboniferous period, around 300 million years ago, Earth's atmosphere reached oxygen levels of up to 35%, far above the 21% we breathe today. This extraordinary concentration acted like a biological superfuel, allowing organisms with passive respiratory systems, like insects, to reach sizes that would be physiologically impossible in today's atmosphere. It was in this era of dense air that true winged and crawling monsters emerged, like Meganura, a dragonfly with a 70-centimeter wingspan that ruled the skies over swampy forests. On the ground, Arthroplurus slithered through the vegetation, a giant millipede up to 2.6 meters long, whose segmented body depended directly on efficient oxygen diffusion through its spiracles to sustain its colossal mass. Science confirms this correlation through modern experiments where insects raised in hyperoxic chambers grow significantly larger than their counterparts under normal conditions. This proves that, for arthropods and other invertebrates, maximum size is limited by the physics of tracheal respiration, making atmospheric oxygen the true evolutionary ceiling for this specific group of prehistoric animals. However, it's crucial to make an important scientific distinction here. This oxygen peak occurred hundreds of millions of years before the first dinosaurs ever set foot on Earth. By the time giant sauropods like Argentinosaurus evolved during the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods, oxygen levels had already dropped to values close to or even below today's, which rules out the high oxygen theory as a universal explanation for all prehistoric gigantism. This leaves us with an even bigger mystery. If oxygen wasn't what drove the growth of the largest land animals of all time, what was? The answer requires us to set aside atmospheric chemistry and look inside the bodies of these titans themselves. where evolution developed biological engineering solutions that no other animal group has ever managed to replicate with such efficiency. Sauropod dinosaurs like Argentinosaurus and Patagodoton didn't just grow enormous, they revolutionized the biology of growth itself. Unlike mammals, which have a slower and more limited pace of development, these giants reached sexual maturity within a few decades but kept adding mass for years afterward, taking advantage of every resource available in their lush ecosystems to build bodies that could weigh more than 70 tons. The structural secret lay in their bones, light, hollow, and filled with air sacs connected to the respiratory system, a trait inherited from their theropod ancestors. This bone architecture drastically reduced skeletal weight without sacrificing strength, allowing them to support colossal mass without their own legs buckling under gravitational pressure, something that would be fatal for any mammal of similar size. But the real magic was in the respiratory system. They had extremely efficient unidirectional lungs, similar to those of modern birds, which extracted oxygen continuously and powerfully, even at normal atmospheric levels. That meant that regardless of the oxygen concentration in the air, they had an internal engine capable of sustaining a high metabolism and accelerated growth, defying the physiological limits that constrained other animal groups. Abundant food was the final fuel. With small mouths and simple teeth, they didn't chew. They swallowed vegetation whole and let slow intestinal fermentation do the heavy lifting. This strategy let them process industrial quantities of low-quality plant matter, turning entire forests into raw energy to keep their titanic bodies running constantly, day and night, without stopping. For millions of years, this perfect combination of rapid growth, lightweight skeleton, efficient respiration, and bulk feeding produced the largest land animals that ever existed. But while these titans ruled dry land, another realm concealed monsters even more impressive, one where the laws of physics work differently, and the size limit seems not to exist at all. While dinosaurs reigned on land, the oceans harbored predators on a scale that defies imagination, like Megalodon, a shark up to 18 meters long capable of biting with a force of 18 tons. Alongside it swam Liviate melvillei, a toothed whale the size of a modern sperm whale, but with 36-centimeter fangs designed to tear into the flesh of giant prey in epic battles in the depths. Water is the great physical equalizer that allows this outsized growth, since buoyancy almost entirely neutralizes body weight, eliminating the need for massive skeletons and sturdy legs to support against gravity. This frees evolution to focus purely on muscle size and hunting capability, allowing animals to reach masses that would be structurally impossible on land, where every extra kilo demands an enormous energy cost. It wasn't only the predators. Marine reptiles like Mosasaurus and Shawnosaurus dominated the Mesozoic waters with elongated, hydrodynamic bodies that cut through the oceans like living torpedoes. Dunkleistus, an armored fish from the Devonian, proved that even before the dinosaurs, the seas were already arenas of titans, where bony armor and guillotine-shaped jaws determined who sat atop the primitive food chain. These marine monsters didn't depend on elevated atmospheric oxygen or dense forests. Their gigantism was the product of abundant prey in productive oceans and the thermal efficiency of water, which helps keep body temperature stable. That stability allowed them to sustain active metabolisms in enormous bodies, without the risk of overheating that plagues large land animals in hot climates. But while the seas teemed with these aquatic colossi, the land also saw the rise of another group of giants, not reptiles, but furry, resilient mammals who would inherit the planet after the dinosaurs' extinction. They proved that gigantism wasn't the exclusive domain of reptiles, but an evolutionary strategy that could be reapplied by any group with enough time and resources. With the extinction of the non-avian dinosaurs, a massive ecological vacuum opened up on Earth, and mammals, once small and nocturnal, seized the opportunity to grow. Titans like Paraceratherium emerged, a hornless rhinoceros that stood nearly 5 meters tall, grazing on treetops like a primitive giraffe, proving that gigantism wasn't exclusive to reptiles. In the frozen tundras of the Pleistocene, the woolly mammoth dominated with its dense fur and curved tusks, while the saber-toothed tiger, Smilodon, lurked in the shadows, using its 28-centimeter canines to finish off large prey with surgical precision. These animals evolved in response to intense cold and the need to conserve body heat, where greater bulk means less energy loss to a hostile environment. In South America, the giant sloth, Megatherium, and the giant beaver, Castoroids, showed how adaptation can lead to bizarre and colossal forms. The sloth, the size of an elephant, used its enormous claws to bring down entire trees, while the beaver, the size of a black bear, built dams that reshaped entire landscapes, demonstrating the outsized ecological impact of these megamammals. However, unlike the dinosaurs that reigned for more than 160 million years, the age of giant mammals was short and brutally cut off. Many scientists point to a fatal combination of rapid climate change at the end of the last ice age and mounting pressure from emerging human hunting, which decimated populations already made vulnerable by these large animals' slow reproduction rates. This mass extinction left the planet orphaned of its largest land dwellers, leaving only echoes of that glorious past in modern elephants and rhinoceroses. But this brings us to the final, most unsettling question. Why, after all this history of titans, does today's world seem so small? What changed that made gigantism stop being the rule and become a rare, fragile exception? The modern world is a fragmented, hostile place for giants, where rapid climate change and drastic shifts in vegetation have reduced the availability of the continuous resources needed to sustain extreme body mass. The dense, unbroken forests of the past gave way to landscapes fragmented by natural, and more recently, human activity, creating physical barriers that prevent the efficient movement and feeding of animals that need thousands of square kilometers to survive. Evolutionary pressures shifted radically. Instead of competing only for food or mates, large animals now face extreme seasonal scarcity and the need to adapt quickly to unstable environments. Gigantism, once a powerful competitive advantage, became an existential risk, since it demands an immense amount of daily energy that degraded or ever-changing ecosystems can no longer consistently provide. Moreover, human influence on ecosystems over the past several tens of thousands of years has accelerated this decline, whether through the direct hunting of megafauna or the indirect destruction of critical habitats. The megafauna extinction syndrome shows how removing the largest animals destabilizes entire food chains, creating a domino effect that favors smaller, more agile species with higher reproduction rates, capable of recovering quickly from disturbances. Despite this bleak picture, nature still holds impressive exceptions that defy this trend toward terrestrial miniaturization. The blue whale, the largest animal ever to exist in Earth's history, continues to grow in the deep oceans, protected by buoyancy and the relative abundance of krill, while elephants and whale sharks hold on in specific niches where resources still allow for their monumental existence. These survivors are living reminders that the potential for gigantism still exists within the genetic code of life, but it's now confined to increasingly rare ecological refuges. They show us that size isn't just a matter of biology, but of environmental opportunity, and that the window for such creatures is closing rapidly on our current planet. Although evolution could theoretically produce new titans if environmental conditions allowed for millions of years of stability, the fragmented and fast-changing reality of our current planet makes the return of land giants unlikely, leaving the oceans as the last refuge for gigantism. As we imagine what it would be like to live alongside these creatures, we're reminded of our own smallness in the face of life's history, So here's what I want to know. If you could see just one of these giants alive for a single day, which one would you choose? Leave your answer in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next scientific adventures, because the story of Earth still has so much to teach us.